Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Idiosyncratic Fables, the podcast that encourages for you to share a story that is significant to you. Because everybody has a story to tell, and I want to hear yours. At the time of this recording, it is now the month of December, year 2025. Ideally, I wanted to do an episode per month just to kind of take things nice and slow to make sure that I wasn't rushing with, oh my gosh, I got to get a new podcast episode out there or else I'm going to lose my audience, because I've already done that and I don't want to do that again. So, slow and steady wins the race, as they say. And that's exactly what I want to do here. Is there potential for it to, become more frequent? Sure. Is that time now? Absolutely not. As an example, for the month of October, it was a lot. We had a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes here in the family. And then I had surgery on October 30th because yours truly got his first ever hernia. I do not recommend. Getting old is not fun. So leading up to the date of surgery, I pretty much front-loaded all of my audiobook work that, some had like a start date of November 1st and others weren't even due until like mid-November. And I said, you know what? We're just going to go ahead and front-load all of this, get it done right now, so that way I don't have to worry about it at all in November. So that made from like October 15th until October 30th incredibly busy, working like morning and afternoon, nonstop recording, to include lots of tea with honey and lots of water. Because with the nature of my job, you got to make sure you stay hydrated. Those vocal cords do not perform well if they're dried out. So on a good note, I achieved my goal. I got all of my audiobook work done before surgery. Huzzah! It was great. And then we get into surgery, and then we get into November, and I didn't have anything to do. I was sitting on my bottom, feet propped up, recovering from surgery, and I said to myself, you know what, self? This is a great time to do some writing. I went, all right, what are we going to write? Lo and behold, royalroad.com was hosting their write-a-thon for the year. I said, you know what, that sounds like a great idea. Shouldn't be too hard. I've got a full month of recovery ahead of me. It was going to be, what was the challenge? I think it was 55,555 words in 5 weeks. The only prize that they're giving out is say, hey, kudos, you did it. And they were going to give you I think 1 month free subscription or premium status, whatever it is, to Royal Road. So pretty cool. And if you win, you have the option to donate that membership to somebody else. I was like, you know what? I can fully respect that. Let's go ahead and jump on this and make it happen. So I did. Came up with this really cool idea for like a dark fantasy book, loosely based on Dungeons and Dragons elements, wizards, elves, spells, and monsters and stuff like that. A group of adventurers go on a quest, and all is well. I think I got about 6 or 7 chapters into it, and then, hey, knock, knock, here come the holidays knocking on my door. So, had to take a back seat to writing altogether. I did not finish the write-a-thon, and I'm okay with that. Am I going to finish the story? Probably. But I'm not in any hurry to do it. But I will finish it. It's something I started, and it's something I intend to finish. So here we are now in the month of December, and I've got more audiobook work to do. Just started a brand new lit RPG book by Doug Losey. It's the 4th one in his Elsewhere series. This one is called Contested Stars. I'm not going to give you any information about this one at all. However, if you would like to tune in and listen while I record for some cool advanced copy or even behind-the-scenes content, then follow the link in the description to this podcast episode, which will take you directly to my Discord server. I try and narrate live every weekday, Monday through Friday, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. You can usually find me in there around those times, and I would love to have you join me. It's going to be fun. All right. So we've covered October, we've covered November, and we've covered what I've got started already in December. And I am excited to introduce to you my next guest for this month for the podcast. KJ Bradley and I go way back, all the way to our time in Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, when both of us were assigned to the Field Artillery Battery Bravo 26 underneath the 212 Fires Brigade, underneath the 1st Armored Division. I had the absolute honor and privilege to sit down with him again and talk to him, catch up on old times, and discuss what he's doing now as a creative, as a business owner, and as a civilian with a military mindset. So I invite you, dear listener, to tune in to listen to my interview with KJ Bradley. Ladies and gentlemen, today's guest has interviewed over 150 veterans, first responders, and community leaders, but his own story is just as compelling. From military service to media entrepreneurship, KJ Bradley is on a mission to preserve the voices that shaped our communities. KJ, my man, thank you so much for agreeing to be a guest on my show for this month.
My brother, it is an honor, and that voice is mesmerizing. I love hearing it every time. Every time, I'm just like, yeah, that's the soulness right there. That's the soul coming out.
I appreciate that. So we're going to jump into some Q&A sessions here, pretty much talking about where you're at now, but more importantly, what your motivation was to get you where you're at now. So let's talk about your origin story. What was the moment you realized storytelling could be a form of service?
Uh, I'd have to say it was right after I got the news that I was med boarding. We're in Fort Bliss, Texas, and I found myself in a really depressive state because I always wanted to be that soldier, to die in their boots and bury me in my uniform. And then in an instant, everything was taken away from me. And so, kind of just laying around, and my wife just suggested on a whim. She was like, "Hey, why don't you pick up a journal and just start journaling?" She was like, you used to write all the time, and for whatever reason you stopped. And I think this will be good for you to help you process everything you're going through. And at first, me being the big burly man that I am, said, that itty bitty woman don't know what she's talking about. Sure enough, she bought me a notepad and a pencil, and was like, I'm just gonna leave this here. And it just kind of started with just what I'm thankful for to kind of fight the depression. And then shortly after, it started turning into short stories all over again. And I never forget, I was getting ready to we were getting ready to move to South Carolina. I was working a day job in transitions in Fort Bliss, and my wife had grabbed my journal and read one of my stories, um, and it was called "The Summer of Seven Fiancés," which is a true story. As a private, I spent the summer where I had literally seven fiancés. So I wrote a short story about it, just kind of journaling. And my wife read it, and she was like, "This is really good. You should submit it, and see if anything goes." And I was like, "All right, cool, whatever." Not thinking much about it. And I submitted it to this writing contest, um, and I ended up getting picked up. So they asked me to write another writing sample, which I did, which was really cool. And I ended up getting picked up for the WGA fellowship program, which is a veteran led program, writers program, that kind of mentor you through a year. And once I got picked up, I kind of thought to myself like, hey, I might be halfway decent at this thing, and that kind of set the spark in motion to send me on my way.
Fantastic. I may need to pick your brain more about that writing program.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal program. I absolutely recommend it.
All right. How would you say your military experience influenced your approach to leadership in media?
Oh, that's a great question.
I've got a few
Just,
of
just
them.
yeah, just the adaptability of it all, right? Yeah, I mean, now that you're more seasoned in this space, you kind of know that you have to you have to navigate in different personalities, and you have to be able to read the room adeptly, right? And just knowing that, and it, I almost liken it to going to a briefing in the talk, or working in the operations center, right? You're going to deal with a bunch of different personalities, all with the same goal. And you have to find your piece, and you have to make yourself valuable, right? Like, when we would give, update briefs or whatever, everyone has their 30 seconds to kind of get up there and show their value to the commander. That's how I kind of liken this space, right? When you get your time to shine, when you get your 30 seconds, you need to be prepared. You need to hit it. You need to hit it hard and hit it right, and then get out of there. Uh, so yeah, to belabor the point, the military is kind of gave us the backbone, and the, I guess, the stamina to deal with the ebbs and flows of everything we do.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about building KTA Interactive. What were the early challenges of launching a media company with such a personal mission?
Ah, that was a labor of love. I swear I got a story for everything, man. But KTA Interactive kind of came about when I was volunteering at the Veterans Home down in El Paso. I would go down to the Veterans Home every Friday and Saturday, and they had what's called the social hour, right? From 6 to 8 right after they ate dinner, and then again from 1 to 3 on Saturday afternoons. And I would just go down and hang out with the veterans, and I would hear all these phenomenal, amazing stories. And I was like, man, these are great stories. And one day I was sitting with this World War II veteran, and he was telling me this absolutely phenomenal story about uh, man, I can't remember, but it's the story where they were digging the foxholes in Germany. I can't remember what battle it was offhand, but he was kind of telling me about the day to day stuff, and how much they sucked, and the only thing that kept them alive was literally just talking shit to each other. You know what I'm saying, to keep them warm. And I
Well,
was like,
yeah.
yeah. And I was like, that's a phenomenal soldier story that history is not going to tell us. Like, you're not going to read that in any history book. So I came
No.
home and I was telling my wife about it, and she was like, hey, maybe it's a good idea for you to kind of capture that story. So that's where I kind of got the idea of 10-minute stories, just capturing these little snippets of stories and then putting them together. And then I went to a business meeting. They was like, hey, you should have a production story. You should have a production company to protect your IP that you're recording. And funny story about the name KTA. So I only had one child at the time. So the company's name is actually Kenneth Tierra Caleb Productions.
Ah,
Yeah, so that's the name for KTA. And then later I founded Raptor Kids for the kids I had later on. But yeah, that's how we came up with the name. I didn't know what to call it so much. Like, just name it after something. And I was
yeah.
like, all right, cool. There you go. That works.
I love that. So, once KTA took off, how did you go about choosing your guests, and what would you say makes a story worth telling?
Yeah, absolutely. So initially, 10-minute stories is kind of our flagship program, and that kind of what got us going. And the guests were real simple, man. We wanted to find stories that resonate, right? Stories that, I mean, everybody, you turn around the corner, everybody's got a story, but we wanted to find those stories that you like I said, you can't find in history books, right? um One of the mantras that I kind of live by in my production, and I have it on my vision board, is an old African proverb that says, when an elder dies, a library of wealth dies with him. So I
Ooh,
wanted to make sure I was able to encapsulate that wisdom, right? And hold on to that and preserve their memory in their own words. And that's what kind of motivated us and molded us and pushed us forward. And then, as we grew and got more comfortable, more ideas kind of branched out, and we grew from there. But yeah, that's essentially what started it, man. Just all about stories that resonate.
that's awesome. Now, you've interviewed people from literally all walks of life, but there has to be that one moment that caught you off guard. What would you say that is?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will never forget. this interview. So I was working under the umbrella of Easy Way Productions out of California, and
Mhm.
one of my favorite movies, came out. Tropic Thunder. Not sure if you're familiar, right? But
I know the name, but I've never seen it.
so there's this outlandish character that Tom Cruise plays called Lex Grossman, right? Absolutely outlandish, just egomaniacal character, and just absolutely over the top, right? And if you watch the movie, you think to yourself, "There's no way Tom Cruise is overplaying the hell out of this role because there's no way a human being could act this way." Well, thankfully, to my connections with Eric Zuli and Easy Way, I was able to interview the real Les Grossman. And
Oh, wow.
when I tell you, Tom Cruise underplayed his character, um, literally the guy. I never forget. We get on camera, getting ready for the interview. Easy's doing the introductions and everything. Soft introduction, doing the handles and
Sure.
everything. And the guy looks around and looks dead in the camera and goes, "Who the hell is this fuckstick? Why should I interview? Why should I be wasting my time with you?" And I'm just like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "It's gonna be the greatest interview of my life." I was like, "It's gonna be the greatest interview of my life." And we went on for about 25 minutes. The interview was scheduled for 15, but
Mhm.
we went on for 25 minutes, and and the guy, he just, I mean, he was just this over the top character. But he's coming out with a book, or he's trying to develop. I don't know where it is now, but he was developing a book, the real Les Grossman, um, to the title, but I think it was a working title. But man, I mean, one of the most outlandish, just in your face, matter of fact, don't waste my time, just interviews. And I was like, man, I love you. I love you because I love the character that Tom Cruise played. And to see you in real life and to realize that all my in my wildest dreams, Tom Cruise underplayed this character because the real life guy is 10 times more amplified than the character ever could be. It
Wow.
was insane. I'm telling you, I love it. Was one of my favorite interviews to this day. I go back, I love this so much. And I never listen to my interviews. I always made it a rule of thumb. Whatever I fire off into the universe is just there. I don't want to hear it. But I make it my business to go back and listen to that interview at least once a quarter because it was so phenomenal to me. And then I never forget at the end of it, the kid he just stares in the camera and he never called me by my name. Like he called me every alphabet combination in the ZJ, ZB, AB, So at
Right.
the end of it, he just stares in the camera and says, "You know what, kid? You got moxie. You might have a future in this business." and then and then he goes in the most matter of fact way, "Grossman out," and hangs up. I was just like, and I just, I laugh now, you know what I'm saying? But I was so, one, I was starstruck, and then two, I was just dumbfounded. That was just like, that was the perfect way to end the interview for him. That's just who he is. It's
I
just,
love it.
and it was fantastic, man. So it was one by far, most compelling interview.
Man, so
Mhm.
that's actually a fantastic segue into my next question. How would you say you earn trust from the guests who've never shared their story publicly?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that is the great question, right? How do you get someone? First of all, they have to be trusting enough of you that you're going to protect and tell their story in a respectful way. Um, and it goes beyond just the formality of, "Hey, you, this is me," right? Like there has to be a genuine connection, right? We've all seen interviews where everything's all cold and mechanical, and it's just like, next question, next question, next question. And I need to get up out of here, right?
Right.
But you try to find that, you try to find that singular point of connection that you can build off of. And for me, I don't know if you get to feel the same way, but for me, that instant you can see the body language in an interviewee when they finally get to a point to where they let their guard down and they're saying, "Okay, I'm in a safe enough space to where I can share my story with you and be genuine enough to talk about these things because I trust you." And that's a wonderful feeling to have as an interview. Right?
I love it. Absolutely love it. So you've guarded the trust, you've chosen your guest, and out of all the ones you've interviewed, let's say going down the road, if someone watches just one KTA interview years from now, what do you hope they feel?
Ah, man, you hit me with absolute thunders. All right. Um, Empathy, right? And I know that's a weird word, right, for what we do.
Yeah.
But ultimately, at the end of the day, I want I look at interviews as the last bastion of interpersonal communication, right? It's you and me having a candid conversation, you know what I'm saying, about
Yeah.
whatever we're talking about. So to be able, and I've interviewed people where I haven't personally agreed with their opinion or their stand. However, human to human, on a very basic level, I can understand, right? And if anybody goes back and watches any of my interviews, I hope that they can see the empathy, you know what I'm saying? And I hope it rubs off. That's the influence I want to leave in the impact.
I get that. That's probably one of the main reasons I started this podcast of Idiosyncratic Fables. Just simply, as I say at the beginning of every episode, everybody's got a story to tell, and I want to hear yours. And so I wanted this platform to be just that, just a
That's it.
storytelling platform.
That's it, man. Great name, by the way.
Thanks.
Absolutely great name.
What would you say is the most powerful lesson you carried from your military service into civilian life?
Hmm, that is great. And I want to take time to be able to do this question justice.
All right.
The ability to be resilient, right?
Ooh.
And I know we use that word so much that it's become passe, but there is a true art form to resiliency to be able to take your heart and have it ripped out and then be able to put it back to pieces and put it back in because you see where you want to go, even if nobody else believes in the vision, even if nobody else can see the vision. You have enough strength and resiliency to get up off the mat one more time every time and to continue to push forward. Um, and thankfully, the military kind of taught me like, hey, no matter how much you eat, the sun will rise. And when it rises, I need you ready. I need you ready to go. And so I take that lesson with me with everything I do uh, in production and media and just life in general.
How do you think storytelling can help bridge the gap between veterans and the communities they return to?
It's a great, great question. And I'm glad you asked. That is a fantastic question. So, veterans, one thing I've learned in working with the veteran community and the Leo community and, first responders, we all have similar but distinctly different stories, right? Overarching, it's a weird umbrella how the similarities of our experiences all kind of intertwine within one another, but are absolutely distinctly different. Um, and I say that I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? Help me out.
uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
PTSD got me.
yeah, no, it's okay. Bridging the gap between veterans and the communities they return
That's it.
to.
Yeah, bridging
Yeah.
the gap. Lord have mercy. Yeah. All right. So I say all that to say that our stories are not, they're unique to us, but there is a community when we take the uniform off that needs these stories, and more often than not, can absolutely relate. Even I've interviewed postal workers who have similar experiences, and you think to yourself, man, how difficult is that job? I drive a truck, I put some mail in the mailbox, and then I'm off on my day. And then, surprisingly, you realize that, man, those stories are absolutely unique. Just, it's no different than being, in a 30-day FTX or whatever. You're out there just eating it day after day after day, hoping for it to end. And, the communities that we live in, man, are all they're distinctly unique, but also so similar that if we just take the time to just talk to one another, we'd realize we have absolutely far more in common than we ever have apart. and that's super dope.
So let's circle back to empathy then. What role would you say that empathy plays in your work as a producer?
I got to answer this with care.
Yeah.
In today's climate, especially, um, we try to push out works that embody togetherness, right? That speak to our it highlights our differences, but then it also celebrates our similarities within those differences. And I know on a macro level it makes absolutely no sense, right? But the more you drill down, the more you realize no matter how different we are at the end of the day, we all have similar traits. And no matter what side of the aisle you're on politically, socially, economically, it doesn't matter. When you boil it down to the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We just have different views of seeing that. And what we try to do as a production company with our works is we try to show that, on macro levels we're different. But if you just look a little bit deeper, you'll see that we're all the same.
I 100% agree. In every single walk of life, every avenue of employment, there has to be a level of self care, a level to where we can just take 10 minutes by ourselves and help to recharge. With that being said, how do you personally recharge after emotionally heavy interviews?
That's a great question, man. I This is gonna sound really weird, really hippie-ish of me, but I have really gotten into grounding, which is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, shoots off, feet in the grass, and just becoming one with centering myself again. And that has the effects have so profoundly shifted my mindset and my thinking. Just taking a second to feel the earth beneath my feet, the blades of grass between my toes, the sun beaming down on my face, and just not speaking, but just listening and surrounding myself with nature is absolutely. I mean, it does wonders for me. Even in my heaviest interviews, or even lighthearted interviews, I just do it now, just out of habit. After every interview, go outside and I just just kind of stand and just wiggle my toes like a toddler almost. Wiggle my toes in the grass and
Yeah.
stare up at the sun or the moonlight and just just appreciate nature in its purest form.
You're not the first person I've heard that from. It was another gentleman, YouTube video short, what have you, talked about the exact same thing, but
Oh
also
man.
demonstrated the science behind it. This guy took a voltmeter, took one end, plugged it into the ground, and he's, shoes and socks off. He's standing there, bare feet to the dirt, and
Hmm.
took the other lead and held it in his hand, and it was a complete circuit.
Really?
Yeah,
I
100%
didn't.
complete electrical
I
circuit.
did. I did not know that.
Yeah,
That
and
is insane.
and then he said, "Now watch what happens." And he stepped onto the concrete, same thing, and the circuit was broken.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Man, listen, that is a miracle. The miracles are abound, man. Yeah, I mean,
They
if you
really
just
are.
take a second and just look to appreciate them, they're still there, and they're manifesting every day.
Absolutely. What would you say is one value that you refuse to compromise on, no matter the project?
I can't. I cannot lie, purposely lie, and when I say lie, I mean purposely, willfully try to mislead or misdirect anyone.
Mm.
I when you put out enough content, you read enough sources, you're gonna, you're gonna take some strikes with some balls, right?
Oh, yeah.
Every swing isn't a home run. You're gonna miss some. But we try to pride ourselves into not purposely mislead anybody. And it so much so to the point where I've cut off interviews where people will just come on and they just want to run talking points and they just, what I'm saying? They just, they have no, they don't have a genuine interest in dialogue. They just want to come in, get their points off, and truth be damned, this is what I want to say, and and you brought me here, so you're gonna listen. And
Almost as if
yeah,
they sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, finish.
I was like, almost as if they don't have the moxie.
Yeah,
Wink, wink.
yeah, and I just can't. You know what I mean? I can't.
Yeah.
I am okay with being called out and being wrong. But I try to pride myself in what I'm saying, just doing the best I can with the information I have at the time. And I am not above going back and being like, hey, I got this absolutely wrong. Here's new data. This is my new opinion based off the new data. And as you could tell, that does not bode well in the digital world.
No, it doesn't. So speaking of the digital world, how do you see podcasts and likewise digital media shaping the way we preserve history?
It is an interesting paradox, right? Because never before have you been able to get so much information. I mean, not even at your fingertips anymore. It's almost embedded in you from the time every waking hour you're being fed that, and it is insane. And I don't know. I am in awe and also definitely afraid at the very same time because it can be the most magnificent, liberating thing to ever happen in terms of expressionalism and truth and honesty and going on a legit journey to find out the truth. But as humans most often do, they've perverted it to a point where it's just like I'm just going to manipulate it to the way that I feel. Truth be damned, and that scares me. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It scares me profoundly because I worry not just for my children, but for my children's children to grow up in a world where everything is digitally, digitally saturated to the point to where to read a book, you know what I mean? It
Right.
is is to be found, an anomaly, and that bothers me. That keeps me up at night, honestly, if I'm being honest.
I would even go so far as to say a physical hard copy of a book at that,
Absolutely,
not on a
absolutely,
digital screen or audio format, but an actual hard copy, paper bound book.
absolutely, absolutely.
Speaking of books, couple more questions for you before we
Yeah,
wrap it up
absolutely.
here. We talked a lot about KTA Interactive, excuse me, but we haven't touched on your latest founding, Obsidian Inc. Talk to me about that.
Yes. Obsidian Inc. is a passion project that I kind of love. We've kind of made a natural progression from doing podcasts to shooting shorts, and we've had moderate success in each arena. Um, but my passion has always been writing, right? Always been writing. So um, one thing when my production partner and I we get in the room, we call it the dungeon, our writing room, and we're putting together stories or whatever. And I always notice he is adept at writing in script format, right? Like that is his thing. He will pop out a script in no time flat. If I have to write in script format, it takes me hours to get through page, like hours. I am struggling. Like I know everything I want to say, but I am struggling to get it in the script format. But when you put it in narrative form and I'm able to just let it flow and just go, I I am the most happiest, which is absolutely wrong, but I am at my most happiest point when I'm able to just let the voices go on their own journey, right?
Mm.
And from that we kind of came up with um, Obsidian and Obsidian Inc. Just kind of maintaining those same horror traits that we kind of fell in love with and have always been passionate about, but then also able to incorporate, near future thrillers and that sort of stuff. And it's just been a phenomenal journey, man. We're having a blast.
You touched on the next one I was going to ask with Obsidian Inc. Would you say that you're focused on two genres as far as thriller and horror, or do you see yourselves expanding out from that?
So, right. I mean, eventually everybody wants to expand, right? But
Yeah.
Obsidian Inc. is going to be, psychological thriller, horror. That is kind of where the universe has me right now. We do have other ideas that are, you know, in very early development, and I mean by early development, hey, that's a great idea. You know, what I mean, just put that in the notebook or put it on the, on a sticky pad, put it up somewhere. But no, man, it's just it's so to be able to take a reader on a ride or on a journey without having to result to blood, guts, and that sort of stuff, but to take them mentally on a ride to where they are fully immersed in an environment is the most that is the greatest compliment I can have as an author, right? So I find absolute joy in it, and unless my wife tells me to stop, I'm probably going to stay in that genre.
Hey, you're speaking my language. I've got a few ideas that are
Oh,
thriller and a little bit of horror as well. I'll talk to you offline about some of those.
absolutely, absolutely, man. I love it.
Okay. So, final question for you before we call it for the day or
Yep.
call it to a close, whatever you want to throw in there. If someone had only 10 minutes to hear your story, what would you want them to know?
Yeah, I can sum it up in 2 words, man. I tried. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's ultimately, ultimately, you'll never please everyone, right? Even the most prolific writers of history had those that cast aspersions on them.
Mhm.
But for those in my tribe, for my audience, they'll know um, that I try, and I want to deliver something memorable um, every time. So yeah, that's it, man. I tried, and that's the mentality I try to get up every morning with, uh, and I try to instill in my kids. It's okay to fail. It's okay to succeed, but get up every day, get off the mat, and try. Right?
90% is just showing up.
That's it, man. That's it.
I love it. Absolutely love it. KJ, thank you so much for your time and willingness to be on the show, man. I truly appreciate you.
My brother, anytime, man. This was an honor. I am so grateful and thankful you had me on. It's always great to catch up, man. And I will never get tired of listening to that melodic voice of yours.
Appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for those that are out there listening to thank you for listening to another episode of Idiosyncratic Fables. My guest this time has been KJ Bradley, coming all the way from KTA Interactive with shows like My 10 Minute Stories and Cause and Effect. And now you just heard his latest, Obsidian Inc. Stay tuned because this man has lots of greatness in store in his future. But not just about writing and videos and interviews. If you have a story to tell, you are always welcome to just drop me a line, send me an email, and I would love to hear your story because that's what this show is about. That you heard earlier, that's what this platform is meant to be, a safe space to share your story where you wouldn't feel comfortable elsewhere to share it because everybody has a story to share, and I want to hear yours. And so until I talk to you next time, dear listener, peace be with you.